There you go.
Yeah, that's fine, thank you.
That's it.
So good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's licensing board. My name is Wendy Barber, and I am clerking the board today. There is one preliminary matter to raise. We have some apologies today, and one of those is from our deputy convener who can't be with us. So in terms of the licensing Scotland Act 2005, on the basis that the convener is unavailable to chair the committee today, I would ask board members to elect another of their members to be the chair for this final board of our session. Councillor Binney.
Yes, I would like to propose Councillor Kerr due to his past experience on the board.
Thank you, Councillor Binney. Are board members happy with that proposal?
Yes, agreed.
That's great. I see nodding heads and agreement for that. So thank you for that suggestion, Councillor Binney. And I will hand over to Councillor Kerr to chair this meeting.
Thanks, Mrs. Barber. Well, I thank the board for allowing me to take this meeting. Hopefully, we'll be as quick and proficient as usual. And I would just like to welcome everybody to our April board meeting. And if I can just pass back to Ms. Barber on item agenda 1 with regard to exclusion of the public.
Yes, thank you, Councillor. So item 1 is exclusion of public and determination of the form of hearing, and this arises from changes made to the legislation due to coronavirus. So it enables the public to be physically excluded from our meeting because necessarily we're online today. However, it does enable the board to also hold hearings remotely, and that is what we're doing today. And it is available to the public to view on YouTube as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Second item, apologies.
We've got apologies today from Provost Buchanan and also Councillor Bissett.
Okay. Declarations of interest? No declarations of interest. Thank you, colleagues. Item 4, minute of the meeting of the 9th of March on pages 3 to 14.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Thank you. A minute of the special meeting of the Licence Board on 28th of March, pages 15 to 17.
Agreed.
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 Thank you, colleagues. We'll go on to our first application. It's for a new premises licence. It's on pages 22 to 24. And as the agent or representative of the applicant here, I take that's you, Gordon.
Good morning, Your Honours. Yes, I'm Gordon Hemsley, representing all 3 applications this morning.
Okay. Have you received the relevant paperwork?
Yes, I can confirm I have.
Mrs. Barr?
Thank you, Convener. The first 2 items this morning for members' consideration are 2 applications for the grant of new premises licences. The first one being the Wee Polish Deli over in York Arcade in Grangemouth, and the second one being the Usage store in Ladeside Crescent in Stenhouse Muir. I can advise members that the appropriate Section 50s have been handed in together with a statement about how the licence holders will address the 5 licensing objectives. There is also detail in the papers as to who the designated premises manager for each store will be. Both these premises were visited earlier this week by a number of the members, which is always really handy, so you can have a look at the premises in the flesh, so to speak. You'll see the layout plans for both of the applications in the papers. Both applicants have submitted, as required, their statements in relation to disabled access and facilities, and they are both in the prescribed form. Now, members are aware that if you have any issues concerning antisocial behaviour, is it within your gift to approach the Chief Constable to have further information pulled together in relation to incidents in the vicinity of the premises. The applications, as per usual, have been notified to our statutory consultees, these being Police Scotland, the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service, the local community council, Forth Valley Health Board, and also neighbouring properties. And they were advertised on the Falkirk Council website for the statutory 21 period. And there is also the requirement for the site notice to be displayed on the premises. And we've received confirmation that this was done in accordance with the requirements. The consideration for both of these matters is that members must consider whether any of the statutory grounds for refusal apply, and if none of them applies, then the board must grant the application. However, if any of them do apply, then you must refuse the application. So the first of these is the We Polish Deli. The applicant is Jolanta Lesiak. There have been no objections or representations lodged in relation to this application, and the applicant has not been convicted of any relevant offence. It's quite a small premises. There are two areas for the display of alcohol, an accessible area which is probably a head height chiller, which has an area of 1.368 metres cubed, and an inaccessible area which is larger. It's a shelved area which is behind the counter. The designated premises manager will be Mrs. Lesiak, who's also the applicant. She's submitted a statement in terms of the 5 licensing objectives, which is very comprehensive. The site notice was displayed and confirmation received. We went there, a number of members, myself and the LSOs, on Monday. The Section 50s have all been handed in. And the details of the application are that this is a Polish grocery store selling very, very bespoke products for members of the Polish community. The proposed hours are within the board's policy, being 10 AM till 8 PM, 7 days of the week. There's no request for a seasonal variation. The board's policy, as members will be aware, it covers the requirement to have a CCTV, and I can advise that this store does. The second requirement for this type of application is for an EPOS type till, and the till must be used for all sales of alcohol, maintained in full working condition, be operating at all times when the premises is open for business, accurately record the date and time for each sale of alcohol, and also the type of alcohol and the amount. Now, the applicant is seeking a departure from policy in this respect because she does not have an EPOS till. The current till system does provide date and time receipts for purchases, and it does give the description of the product sold. Mr. Emsley will go into more detail why they're seeking this departure, but I understand it's to do with the fluctuating value of the pound and the fact that not all the products that are in the store have barcodes. I did actually notice that a lot of them had the old-fashioned pricing gun stickers on them. So Mr. Emsley will be able to give you more information in relation to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Barr. Mr. Emsley, the floor is yours.
Thank you.
Address the board.
The application, as Mrs. Barr has outlined, is for the Polish Deli in York Arcade, and Mrs. Lesiak has leased the property for 3 years. The product range is all European, Eastern European, mainly Polish products that are sold, and really all we're trying to do is enhance that by having a small offering of alcohol. The display area is 3.4 metres squared. So as Mrs. Barr has indicated, it's a shop floor chiller, which is the width of a normal fridge freezer, upright, similar to a kind of Coca-Cola chiller. And then there's an area behind the counter for displaying spirits. The range that will be sold will be about 50 lines, which are predominantly beers and spirits. I'm led to believe that Poland isn't a strong area for producing wines, so that's where the product will be. All the product that's sold in the shop is all European. It's not UK branded at all, so there will be no alcohol that is UK product. It's all sourced and imported. Mrs. Lesiak is a DPM and she sat her qualification in 2020. As Mrs. Barr's indicated, we are aware of the board's policy and EPOS, and there are two challenges that the premises faces. One is a number of products that are sourced from Europe aren't barcoded, and to maintain that system would be expensive. And secondly, all the product that she sources is bought through European importers. And unfortunately, since Brexit, the pound fluctuation to the euro changes on a day-by-day basis. So her pricing structure changes on a week-by-week basis, which means maintenance of our EPOS system would become very cumbersome and almost impractical for her to operate. As Mrs. Barr has indicated, the system is a conventional till with a date receipt, receipts given, and itemised items are itemised on that. Her customer base is predominantly Eastern European, and was witnessed. There were some young people came in who were buying European foods when we were there. Convener thought I'd stage manage that just for the purposes of bringing someone in at the time, but it wasn't. Whilst we've applied for 10 AM to 8 PM, the shop currently trades from 9 AM to 5:30, and we're not looking to change that. The 8 PM is only to cover on the fluctuation of possibly Christmas Eve or a later trading evening during the lead up to Christmas. That's the only reason it's in there. She has no desire. She doesn't trade Sundays and there's no desire to trade Sundays. She's a Monday to Saturday operation because that's her customer base. Based on there's been no objections or submissions, I would move to grant pending questions, Your Honour.
Thank you, Mr. Emsley. Any members got any questions for Mr. Emsley? No. I've just one, Mr. Emsley, with regards to refusal book. What procedure has she got in place for refusals?
Nothing at this present moment in time because no alcohol has been sold. However, a refusal log will be on site, as will all signage that is required mandatorily, and that will be in place prior to her commencing the sale if she's successful in getting a licence. So it's a manual system that she has. It's a manual A5 book which records date, time, event and action taken. So it's a very kind of simplistic system. Both licensed standard officers will be familiar with that manual system.
Okay. Anybody else got any questions for Mr. Emsley? Mrs. Barr, have we got Police Scotland on the call?
No, we haven't. Unfortunately, the licensing team have been hit quite badly with COVID. As you know from the last meeting, the licensing sergeant has retired, and his replacement, I don't think has yet started, due to start imminently. But we're having a few issues. They have responded in the normal process, because they are one of our statutory consultees, and they have come back and advised that they don't have any objections or representations to the application.
Okay. David?
Thanks, Convener. I'd just like to add that
You went on to mute there, David, for some reason.
Okay, hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah, as far as I'm aware, it's a very well run shop. Never any problems. I've not had any adverse reports or anything at all about the shop.
Okay, thank you very much. As a local member, that's very encouraging. Lindsay or Thomas?
Thanks, Chair. No, I've got no comments to make to the application.
With regard to their application regarding, this is for the LSOs, with regard to the application with their statement with the licence objectives. Are we quite happy that there are clear understanding what's required?
Yes, Chair.
That's fine. Well, taken on board, but one of the local members says, I'm quite happy to proceed and grant this application. Any board members, any comments to make?
Agreed.
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 Thank you, colleagues. Mrs. Barr?
Thank you. The decision of the board is to grant the application. I'm assuming this is with the departure from policy in relation to the requirement for the EPOS till?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Obliged, Your Honours.
Thank you. And our second one, the USAVE at Lakeside Crescent, Stennismuir, pages 45 to 74. Once again, Mr. Emsley, have you received the relevant documentation?
Yes, I can confirm I have.
Mrs. Barr?
Thank you, convener. Just scrolling down to the right bit. Yeah. So the second application for a new premises licence is the USAVE store in Lakeside Crescent in Stenhousemuir, and the premises licence holder, or the applicant at this stage, is Mr. Rory MacDonald. Again, there have been no objections or representations lodged in relation to the application, and Police Scotland have confirmed that the applicant has not been convicted of any relevant offence. Again, we have two areas for the display of alcohol, an accessible area of 4.74 metres cubed, and an inaccessible area behind the counter of 1.48 metres cubed. From the site visit, the majority of the accessible area, the alcohol will be contained in two quite large chiller units, and these, as well as a separate shelf stack, and the units have a padlocking system, like a locking system on them, which was quite good. I've not seen that before. The DPM is going to be an Emma Robertson, who holds a personal licence issued by our colleagues over in Glasgow. The submission of the statement in relation to licensing objectives shows a good understanding, and it does include a number of control measures. The site notice was displayed and confirmation received, as well as the disability access and facility statement. We also have all three of the Section 50 certificates, and a site visit took place on Monday of this week. So it's a standalone small general convenience store selling the usual range of fresh foods, tinned products, sweeties, the usual. It's a single story, it's in a residential area, and the premises comprises of the sales area, storage and a staff toilet. The hours are 10 AM till 10 PM, and that's 7 days a week, and there is no application for a seasonal variation. Again, we have the two requirements of the policy in terms of the CCTV and the EPOS till, and I can confirm, and indeed we saw on Monday morning, that these are indeed in place. The premises has two tills in place, and the CCTV has quite a few cameras and a very large screen which is angled so that member of staff working behind the counter can see exactly what's going on in all areas of the shop. Again, it's Mr. Emsley who is representing the agent, representing the applicant, and I'll hand over to him to tell you more about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Barr. Mr. Emsley?
Thank you, Your Honours. Again, a full application for USAVE Lakeside Crescent, Stenhousemuir, a small convenience store that's operated a shop for many years. I'm uncertain as to whether it's previously held a licence or not. It's certainly not held a licence in the 2009 Act, but I don't know whether it held a licence previously to that or not. Typical community store. My client took on the lease last year, has invested in upgrading the shop. and now wishes to add alcohol and home delivery. As Mrs. Barrs indicated, the alcohol display area is in 2 locations, one behind the counter and one on the shop floor. Mrs. Barr is correct that the actual chiller cabinets are padlocked. This is not dissimilar to certain trading areas in Glasgow, which I've experienced with a number of clients, where access is either behind a caged area or it's accessed via a lockable area, just for added security. He may decide as time goes on, if it poses less of a risk for him, then he may decide to remove those, but at this present moment in time, he wants to start on a very solid basis. Home delivery via Snappy Shopper, which has been in the process of that, has been included, and all employees involved in Snappy Shopper are employed by themselves, no third party. Full CCTV and EPOS system in place. Ms. Robertson will be the DPM, and again, there's no objections to submissions, and based on that, Your Honours, I would move to grant pending questions.
Thank you, Mr. Emsley. Any board members, any questions for Mr. Emsley?
No, don't see any.
David?
Yeah, just a quick one. You mentioned that the drivers are all employed. So I take it that means that any sales of alcohol that don't go through the alcohol go back to the store.
Yeah, the Snappy Shopper app, Councillor, is one of those where it's very different than what we have experienced in previous applications. But Snappy is a fairly straightforward operator-driven system, owned and managed by the operator, no third-party involvement in any way, shape, or form, and alcohol is paid on the transaction going through off the app, and if alcohol is unable to be delivered, it's returned and then refunded back through the same mechanism that the customer paid.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anybody else, any questions?
No, it seems like that.
I would just like to say that it was advantageous to visit both sites, and I commented to the gentleman who was there, who I thought was very evasive at first, because Mr. Ross was asking him some good questions, and to be fair, he says, "Oh, I'm just here as a friend," but I think he's more than that. But the questions that we asked him, got the answers eventually. When he understood that Mr. Ross wasn't trying to trick him, he was just asking him questions. There are two or three small things that I'm sure Mrs. Fife and Mr. Ross will revisit regarding some items that they had concerns about, and they'll probably comment on it when I ask them. But about the latch going into the back of the counter had been broken off, some bits that was outside that they weren't happy about. But again, obviously we can't speak to Police Scotland because we've not got anybody. Mr. Ross or Mrs. Fife, anything?
Yeah, I revisited the store yesterday. Just to put members' mind at ease, there was a bit of a conversation over a large what's the word I'm looking for? Plant pot at the base of the ramp. That's now been moved completely. It's gone, so there's a bit of more free access to the store. So that's been taken care of. And also spoke with Mr. Akhtar, who was there Monday, and albeit the wee gated doorway at the counter is not attached yet, but it is. I did view it on site, and due to the small pins in it, he can't fix it. He has to bring someone in, but that is in hand, and it's something I'll be keeping an eye on. So that I can rest assured to the board members that will be sorted.
Right, thank you, Mr. Ross. Anybody, any of the board members, any questions for Mr. Ross or Mrs. Fife?
No.
Well, again, colleagues, I think it will be the outside doesn't give the inside of the shop justice at the moment, because when you see the outside, it doesn't look as if it's a pristine, well-run shop until you go inside. And it, for me, it ticked all the boxes, the EPOS tills, the amount of CCTV cameras that were there, and Mr. Akbar saying that they were going to add another one at the back of the counter as well, which is absolutely fantastic. So I've no reason why to refuse this, and I would like to grant it. The views of the board members.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Thank you, colleagues. Mrs. Barr.
Thank you, Convener. The application for a new premises licence for the store, USave store on Ladeside Crescent, has been granted with no undertakings and no additional conditions. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honours. Just to confirm to Mr. Ross, I have a photograph of said door hinge being repaired last night, so that door is now attached to that gateway. He managed to get a hold of the shop fitters and came in with a new hinge to repair that late yesterday afternoon.
Thanks, Mr. Emsley. That is very important, especially if the young people going into that store and the opportunity for them to get behind the counter.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. Right, we're going to the final agenda item, and it's for a Spar and 326 Main Street, Stensmuir, for a non-variation premises licence, pages 78 to 97. Mr. Emsley, did you receive the correct paperwork?
Yes, I can confirm I have.
Mrs. Barr.
Thank you, Convener. This next item relates to a premises licence that has already been granted by the board, and the applicant is looking to make a variation to the premises licence. So members are aware that where the type of variation doesn't fall within the definition of minor, it falls to the board to make the determination, and that is the case here. The application refers to the Spar store on Main Street in Stenhousemuir, and again, Mr. Emsley is here representing the licence holder. There was no reason to carry out a site visit to these premises because it didn't tick any of the boxes in the policy in relation to that. As is our normal course of action, the application was notified to our various stakeholders. A notice was displayed on the premises, and we received confirmation that had been done for the full required period. Again, in relation to the consideration of this application, in relation to a non-minor variation application, section 30 of the Act applies, and again the board need to consider whether any of the statutory grounds for refusal apply, and if none of them apply, the board must grant the application, and if any of them do apply, then the board must refuse the application. So there have been no objections or representations in relation to this application. The site notice was displayed and the confirmation received, and this application is just in relation to one matter, and that is that the applicant proposes the addition of home delivery of food and alcohol to the list of other activities contained in the operating plan. You will see that the information about home delivery has been included in your papers as Appendix 2E, and again it refers to the Snappy Shopper app. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Barr. Mr. Emsley.
Thank you, Your Honours. Yes, so Spar Stenhousemuir, the application is made on behalf of the tenant who leases the property. CJ Lang are the current owners of the site, but have leased that out to my client. Wishes to add Snappy Shopper. So as board members will be aware, with legislation, COVID legislation coming in June 2020, it enabled existing premises under the current legislation to operate home delivery of both alcohol and food. Following a visit from Mr. Ross about probably just over a year ago, Mr. Ross prompted the client to advise him that he needs to convert that into the full part of the license, hence why we're doing it today. So it's Snappy Shopper, as the documentation presents. He's been operating this now for just on 22 months, had no issues whatsoever, employs everyone himself. He's looked at various models and has decided that the model that he has is the best fit for him. There's been no issues at all during that period of time. And the vast majority of his deliveries are food related, with a small amount being alcohol only. It's only about 3% of his trade that is actually just alcohol only. Greater percentage of food and alcohol, but pure alcohol has only been 3%. And based on no objections, we've moved to grant, Your Honours.
Thank you, Mr. Emsley. Any of the board members, any questions for Mr. Emsley?
No.
No.
No questions.
Thank you. Mr. Ross, Mrs. Fife?
Convener, yeah, I visited the premises last year. I've also visited a number of months ago as well, just to keep a wee keen eye on it. No adverse comments with the application.
Thank you very much. As in the previous ones, I'm quite happy to approve. But the comments say the board members.
Agreed.
No.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Thank you, colleagues. Mrs. Barr?
Thank you, Convener. I can confirm that the application for the non-minor variation to the Spar store in Stenhouse Mill for the addition of the home delivery of food and alcohol has been agreed.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Barr.
Thank you, Your Honours.
Thank you, Mr. Emsley. And just before we go, I'd just like to, on behalf of the convener and the vice convener, like to thank everybody who took part in the board over the last 5 years, because there will be people that will only be coming back as an elected member. So on behalf of them, I'd just like to thank you for your continued support in all the boards that we've had, and I hope that for those that are standing, I hope to see us back in May. So thank you very much. And I'd like to thank the officers on behalf of the convener and the vice convener for the work that you've given them through the 5 years. So there's a lot of work goes on behind the scenes that board members don't really realise, and I'd just like to thank you for that support. Thank you. Not bad, half an hour, that was all right. So thank everybody.